Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1009 just came out, and what a way to get back into the rooftop chapters. I mean, where to begin? Okay, we're gonna begin downstairs. Not that downstairs is any less important, but we're gonna get that stuff out of the way real quick so we can talk about the juicy bits of the chapter. So, Orochi is, of course, back in action. I will say I got a very different feel between Orochi's beheading number 1 and, beheading number 2. So, what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, the scene, I forgot that this is the first time that the Scabbards are coming face to face with Orochi. This confrontation has not happened yet, so this was necessary. This was the moment that Orochi realizes that all of his worst suspicions are essentially confirmed. He was right all along, which to me is still really funny that for once the crazed lunatic villain, sniveling kind of coward guy, he was right all along in terms of all of his, suspicions that the samurai are back. They're back for his head. They're going to cause a lot of trouble for Wano, and they're going to basically lead to his downfall. He was right, for the entirety of Act 1 and Act 2. Well, Act 2 is when we met him, obviously, but he was right that entire time, and this is the moment that he gets to actually see that with his own eyes. So, this moment had to, of course, happen. He does acknowledge that, okay, so Kanjuro is a traitor for you guys, but then, you guys got me back. Denjiro was Kyoshiro, in his eyes, was a traitor on my side. So, I guess it goes both ways. And we got a really good panel of all of the 8 Scabbards cutting off Orochi's heads. But, here's the thing. I do wonder why... Okay, so earlier on when Orochi was revived, right? The question was, okay, why is he still a major player? Hopefully it's not just because Oda does not like killing characters. There should be something more to it than that. But the Yamato no Orochi has always been an interesting fruit to me just because, for several reasons. Because, one, it's a mythical zone, and those are very, very, very rare in One Piece, right? The power of a mythical zone is hyped up quite a bit. Or at least the rarity of the mythical zones is hyped up quite a bit, but these things are meant to be special. So the fact that it was given to some character that is essentially the equivalent of a modern-day Spandam is pretty strange, right? It is pretty strange that Oda would choose to give that to Orochi rather than any sort of mythical zone going to any of Kaido's other calamities. So the fact that in the first place he has a mythical zone, and on top of that the fact that the old hag that we got during the Oden flashback mentioned that this fruit somehow would give him great power. She hyped up the fruit as a means for him to seize power in Wano. So the fruit in some way supposedly was hinted at, I suppose, at being a key to Orochi being able to maintain power in Wano, or reason why he would be able to ascend to the throne of Shogun. And we really haven't seen any of that because Orochi on the surface seems like a very, very weak combatant, and he still does, right? Got his head cut off once, he got his head cut off again. Now, in the first place, alright, a thing that I've seen a lot of people talking about is, okay, maybe similar to cats having 9 lives, Orochi, he has 8 heads, maybe he gets 8 shots, at life before it's just the end for him, right? So maybe he gets to die 8 times, maybe only specifically if it's with his heads being cut off, but at least that, that's better than nothing, right? You get to survive 8 beheadings, that's pretty good in my book. But I wonder if there is something more to it than that, than just the fact that he gets to live longer, right? Is there something more to it than that, in that, is his personality potentially going to change as the heads start getting whittled down? Because the feeling I got with the first beheading is that, okay, we know Orochi's going to bounce back. The feeling I got from the second beheading, at least with the panels Oda's giving of, showing again the beheaded Orochi, and the Scabbards kind of feeling like, okay, we just took care of that. And we're still getting this sort of ominous look at Orochi's head just on the ground, and we know, the reader knows from this shot, that Orochi is going to be back. The feeling I'm getting is maybe there is going to be something more to what Orochi can do at the end of the day. Maybe as his heads get whittled down, something about him changes. Maybe there is something up his sleeve that maybe he even doesn't know about. I think certainly Kaido didn't know about, the fact that Orochi could survive his heads being cut off. So I wouldn't bet my money on it that, Orochi is, I don't even want to say Orochi is strong or something like that, but I wonder if there's something more that we get out of him as we get closer and closer to the bottom of the bottom of what this devil fruit actually can do. I do think it's going to be something more than just Orochi just running around and setting fire to things left and right. And, this does also make me wonder a little bit. So the Scabbards got to kill Orochi once, in a sense. Hiyori mentioned that she wanted to kill Orochi. Zoro mentioned that I believe he mentioned he wanted to kill Orochi. So in that sense, I wonder if everyone's gonna, like, we're gonna get several characters. I mean, this is the perfect character for everyone to have a vendetta against, because everyone can take turns just chopping this guy's heads off. He's got lives to spare. So I wonder if we're gonna get to see something like that, where multiple characters get to kind of take out Orochi in a sense. But all that being said, the other important point that we got from the downstairs was Fukurokuju versus Raizo. This was technically something that, you know, a situation where two characters did have a past with each other. So even if it was basically just mentioned in a one-off panel, right, like a fairly one-off panel during Odin's backstory, so I don't really feel that much in terms of this conflict. I'm not like, Raizo versus Fukurokuju, the long-awaited battle, right? This is the big one that we've really needed to see. The animosity between these two has just been built up for so long. They have such a storied history with it. Like, I'm like, okay, we're getting this battle and it technically makes sense. So, I don't know. Raizo versus Fukurokuju, that's happening, I guess. Besides that, let's talk about the upstairs, right? Let's talk about the rooftop. So, first of all, I guess I'll say, if you're a Zoro fan, you are most likely not watching this video because your spirit has probably left this earthly plane after watching, you know, what he did this chapter. Right, I was mind blown. The chapter starts off with Kaido and Big Mom launching probably the strongest, I'd say, you know, just sheer, like, let's say in terms of a physical attack, right? Like, I'm not going to compare things to like Whitebeard's Quakes and stuff like that, but let's say a non-Devil Fruit attack. This was maybe the strongest non-Devil Fruit attack that we've seen in the entire series. I mean, right? Like, it's a combined attack from two Yonko. I don't know how you want to scale certain things. Maybe you think... No, I would guess. Yeah, I would guess that this is the strongest single non-Devil Fruit-based attack that we have seen in the entire series. It's Kaido and Big Mom launching some pretty serious firepower at the Alliance. I was definitely shocked to see just Zoro by himself tanking this. I mean, I did think that this would be a moment where everybody kind of has to combine powers to basically hold this off, but instead we got Zoro tanking this by himself. Yes, he did technically, I suppose, only block it for... I think Kid implied that he blocked it for a moment, and then we saw that the attack did get past, and it did seem as though he was injured to a degree. But that's still insane. Like, I'm flashing back to, if you remember, during Whole Cake Island, if you're a weekly reader during Whole Cake Island, when Big Mom took a swing at Jinbei, and Jinbei was able to block Big Mom for, I don't know, like a moment, similar to what Zoro just did. Everybody thought that was really impressive, and that was just like an unnamed attack from Big Mom when she was shriveled up and starving, and Jinbei was able to block that for a moment before being sent flying, and everyone thought that was crazy. I thought that was crazy. And now we see this, which is just a totally different scale. Zoro doing it on a totally different scale. Definitely the most impressive, if you're like a power scaler, that's the most impressive feat that Zoro has probably shown throughout the entire series. I'd say that's one of the most impressive things you could imagine any character doing. So, you know, if you're a Zoro fan, you're probably celebrating, probably popping champagne, doing whatever you do when you celebrate. But besides that, I mean, that wasn't even the end of it for him this chapter. Let's talk about how the other characters fared this chapter. So after that attack was essentially stopped, well, not stopped, but at least briefly paused, and then it got through, right? We saw the level of destruction. It seemed like it could have destroyed all of Onigashima, which is just insane. We did get to see them split off into sort of individual battles to some degree. We got Luffy versus Kaido. I did say last chapter, I thought that they would kind of split off into pairs. I think a lot of us were expecting that basically from here on the battle would be more so divided into a Kaido side and then a Big Mom side, and then some characters would shine against one character and other characters would shine against the other. But it does seem as though actually what they meant by, you know, splitting them up was very literal, like, let's just get Big Mom out of there and let's focus on the big dude. So with Kaido versus Luffy, this is the first time we're getting to see Kaido fight in his hybrid form for a little bit. And I like it. Like, I like the new look. I like the new feel of Kaido. Kind of, it feels very Serpentine. It does feel like Luffy is fighting a giant snake man rather than a giant dragon man, but that is also just the way that Japanese dragons work. But I don't know, it just feels like Luffy's fighting like a King Cobra type opponent for some reason. We do see that Kaido, you know, of course he does have to dodge Luffy's attacks. I do think it's interesting that, first of all, okay, so if we compare to the Thunder Bagua, right? So Thunder Bagua at the start of this arc one-shot at Luffy, right? Then recently we see the Thunder Bagua, it kind of goes after Luffy again with it, but this time Luffy's able to evade to a degree, and that's why it's implied, at least to me, that that's why he's not immediately one-shotted by the Thunder Bagua. But here, a couple times we see Kaido hits Luffy once, Luffy blocks it, that's not like a named attack, that's not a big deal. But he pulls out this new thing, this Ragnarok move, and it's in hybrid form. In theory, I would guess it's stronger than Thunder Bagua. I don't really know how to compare these things, but Luffy had to take this one head on. Right? So when Kaido did Thunder Bagua at the start of this fight on the rooftop, we saw that Luffy at least got to dodge it, so he took a significant amount of damage, but we understood why he's still okay and why he wasn't just one-shotted. But it is crazy to me that it seems that Kaido in his hybrid form just landed a full-on hit on Luffy. I don't know if that's going to come with significant repercussions, if Luffy's just going to bounce back, but I do hope to see some level of, I guess, consistency in terms of how much damage Kaido can put out and how much Luffy can take, because it would be kind of wild if Luffy can just tank an attack that is... I guess suppose we can just assume that it's not stronger than Thunder Bagua, which is just... I don't know, it's hard to rationalize that because this does seem to be a significant attack in his hybrid form compared to his pure human form. Maybe it's because he seemed more jacked in his human form, so he can hit harder, but I don't know. I thought hybrid form just, like, buffs your stats all across the board. So we'll have to wait and see how Luffy reacts at the end of next chapter, but I was definitely shocked. I did not think that we would see Luffy taking a full-on hit from Kaido again, at least for a little while, at least not in the early phases of the arc, because of the implication that you just can't take a full-on head-on hit from Kaido, right? I thought that was the implication. So let's see where that goes. On the Big Mom side of things, this was the type of teamwork that I think a lot of us were really hoping for when this fight started. I think definitely when the fight began, it was more so everybody just taking turns, more of a turn-based system. Everyone kind of just like, my turn, your turn, let me do an attack. All right, let's have Kid try and crush him. Let's have Law throw some rocks. Zoro and Killer are trying to take a swing at him. But this was some really, really, really strong teamwork, and this is kind of what you're looking for when you've got so many Devil Fruit users together with such powerful abilities. On top of that, we finally got some confirmation as to Law's limits. Strong confirmation on Law's limits. And I know that you can go back and say that, okay, we always knew that Law, you know, Haki could give him trouble and stuff like that because that was implied from the very first confrontation with Virgo based on what Doflamingo said back in Punk Hazard, right? But this is strong confirmation. This is like absolute, okay, Law's ability is not just, it's not just, you know, pure godlike omnipotence. He can't just vanish someone into the ocean if he chooses. There are limits based on how strong someone's Haki is, for example. So that was a very important clarification because otherwise this battle is going to be a lot of just us feeling like, you know, question marks in terms of, okay, couldn't Law just do this? Couldn't Law just do that? Why is Law not using his ability in this way? There are limits to what Law can actually do. Now, that being said, sorry, there's some ice being dropped in the fridge, so you might hear that in the side. But that being said, the fact that Law can use his abilities on the homies, so Zeus, Prometheus, that is a big game changer. I like the fact that, you know, Kid created this box. I like the fact that Law vanished Zeus inside of the box. Quick trap, metal box for a lightning user. I like the fact that Zoro is making use of his, you know, new flame cutting abilities to take care of Prometheus. And I like the fact that, I guess, Killer gets to fight Napoleon. I guess anyone could have kind of just taken out Napoleon. Like, Napoleon's literally like, I'm just a sword. But most importantly, I like the fact that the way that Big Mom was taken out was very systematic, right? So first remove all for tools, which is not that hard. Then her actual main body is, of course, very difficult to deal with. But it can be still beaten with trickery, right? In the sense that Kid knocks her into the air, Law pushes her a little to the side, and then suddenly she doesn't have any ground to stand on. I thought that whole sequence was just a great use of everybody working together, using their abilities to the fullest. It is interesting to me that Big Mom seems to be just falling straight into the ocean because I was under the impression that they're now on land. I thought that they were now above the mainland of Onigashima. Right, I thought they were now above the mainland of Onigashima, so the fact that it seems like she's falling in the ocean does seem a little strange. I guess that's just the way that perspective kind of works in some of these manga panels. Sometimes we might feel like we're above the mainland of Wano, but I guess in reality we're still above the sea and we haven't quite gotten there yet, which does open up the possibility, because this is One Piece and these sort of things do happen. It opens up the possibility of Big Mom just landing on her own ship, the Big Mom Pirates ship, which is most likely in hot pursuit of this flying island of Onigashima. If you're the Big Mom Pirates, you must be so confused over this entire sequence. So first you get knocked down the waterfall, you get back up the waterfall most likely, and you're like, okay, let's get back to Onigashima. Then Onigashima gets up into the air and starts moving, and you're probably just completely confused as to what the hell you're supposed to do. I assume the only thing you could possibly do is just decide to sail after it. So I would like to think that Big Mom lands on the ship. If she lands in the ocean, then we're suddenly in a tricky situation where we're possibly looking at Amnesia Big Mom again, which I would not personally love. But that's all for this chapter. Really exciting chapter. Best part is, I think it said no break next week, which means that we're going to get more of this rooftop fight. It's just going to be everybody versus Hybrid Kaido, most likely, at least fingers crossed. So if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe.